So today I wanted to talk about learning to live a forgiving life, what it means to learn to live a forgiving life, which is a work in progress for me. What brought me to A Course in Miracles was really the recognition internally that there was something really not working in the way I was relating to people. And what that sense was, the way it manifested for me was kind of a nagging sense of feeling really sort of unloved and unloving, that there was something inauthentic in the way I was relating. And you know, on the outside, I don't think that was what I was, you know, presenting perhaps, but there, it just seemed like there was really something that wasn't right. I never really felt quite genuine. And there was always this nagging sense of feeling unloved and unloving. And so when I finally, through a serendipitous ways, found my way to A Course in Miracles after a lot of spiritual seeking, what attracted me most was its knowing that its core teaching was about forgiveness. And however, you know, like most people, I really didn't understand what the Course's forgiveness was. I was trying to bring my own ideas of what forgiveness was to the Course. And so for the first, I would say, a year and a half, 2 years, I was going to study groups, and I was trying to, you know, I was doing all the things you're supposed to do. I was reading the text, and I was going through the workbook. But actually what my experience was that the conflict in my closest relationships seemed to increase instead of feeling like there was any release. And I had a sense that something wasn't right about what I was doing, that I was doing something wrong. I wasn't getting it somehow. And so what I did was I was just led to really start listening to Ken Wapnick's work, and I borrowed from a library a bunch of the entire text commentary of Ken's and started listening to it. I probably went through it 3 or 4 times, you know, putting it on while I was working out or while I was cooking or something like that, to just try to really immerse myself against, you know, despite my resistance, my unconscious resistance to what it was saying and to understanding the metaphysics. I just figured if I, you know, through repetition, listen to it long enough, it might penetrate my formidable stubbornness and resistance. And actually it did. It really helped me begin to really understand the metaphysics well enough to know about as Ken so brilliantly delineated, the 2 levels the Course speaks on, and to be able to thereby, you know, begin to learn how to practice this in my life where I think I am. And so the way that Ken really was relating it and that I found most useful was to really begin to look at my life as a classroom, you know, change the purpose of my life from rooting myself more deeply in this stream of this unconscious stream of separation from our source, of separation realized with from God realized and punishment deserved. You know, this stream apart from God, this alternate reality that we seem to be living, in which we're constantly in conflict with each other and living out the ego thought system of one or the other, trying to portray ourselves as the more innocent one in our relationships. You know, so beginning to recognize that when I was doing that, I was choosing internally, in my mind, I was choosing the part of my mind, the internal teacher that we call the ego, which is the part of our mind that believed that separation was real, and you know, that God knew about it, and that I, you know, someone must pay, and hopefully it'll be someone besides me. You know, that part of me that's always driven to portray myself as the innocent one in my relationships and blame someone else for whatever anxiety or fear or depression or unfair treatment that I'm feeling. So I really try to make that my purpose, learning that you know, to recognize my ego, and then to also recognize that wasn't all I was in the mind, that I had another internal teacher, that there was also a part of my mind which the Course calls Jesus, Holy Spirit, which is a symbol of that memory of wholeness in our mind. And to begin to, even in my fear and kind of disbelief, to begin to catch myself choosing the ego and begin to turn toward that part of my mind, call on that part of my mind, remind myself that I had that part of my mind, so that I would begin this journey of beginning to trust that there was something else within my mind that saw things completely differently, that saw us all as fighting this same hard battle of trying to prove separation real, which always results in internally making us feel that sense of being unloved and unloving that, I did become aware that I was walking around with, and really is what I think brings most of us to A Course in Miracles in the beginning. So once I kind of at least knew, understood the metaphysics of the Course, and understood that on the level of my experience, it was a practice. It was a classroom, using my relationships that seemed so difficult and trying to change, as a classroom in which I could change my mind and practice a new form of forgiveness, which, unlike the world's forgiveness, was not about trying to, always to still make the other person guilty, but say, the world's form of forgiveness is to say, you are the guilty one, but I'm going to take the high road and be the more spiritually advanced person here, and I will forgive you for what you really did, but I will never forget. So it never takes lets the other person off the hook for the guilt, and honestly, it doesn't let me off the hook for the guilt either. It just internally keeps nourishing it within us and forcing us to project it outwards. So what Ken also taught me, and taught all of us who are, have followed his teachings, is especially in his later years, the 2 steps of forgiveness that he emphasized, that I have found just so enormously useful in my day-to-day work with the Course, in my day-to-day trying to learn to live a forgiving life. What Ken recommended was that we employ lesson 5, which is I'm not upset for the reason I think, and work with lesson 34, which is I could see peace instead of this. And so every time we, the Course is training us first through the workbook, and then as we bring it, to the classroom of our lives, to pay very close attention to our feelings and our reactions and our judgments and our thoughts. And to really catch ourselves when we're feeling all those negative emotions and feeling unfairly treated. Usually the negative emotions we attribute an external cause to. It's somebody's fault that I'm anxious. It's somebody's fault that I was doing just fine today until I got this email, or until you came downstairs, or I got this phone call, or what you said to me, or what I saw in the news, and on and on. So to pay attention to when I'm upset and I'm attributing it to something outside me, someone outside me, to just pause and remind myself that maybe I'm wrong about the cause, because the truth is that nothing outside me has the power to take my peace away. So step 1 is lesson 5. I'm not upset for the reason I think. You're not really the cause of the problem. The cause is a decision I'm making in the mind to identify with the ego, to identify with that part of my mind that is, that is always trying to make separation real and always trying to project it outward. And then step 2 of that, the next step is really kind of step 1, lesson 5 opens that door to step 2, which is I could see peace instead of this, which is really a turning, in the first step, lesson 5, we turn away from the ego, and in lesson 34, we turn toward the memory of wholeness in our mind, the part of our mind that only sees peace and only sees everyone as either calling for love or expressing love. And usually we're all calling for love, and we are all calling for love for the same reasons. So when I employ those 2 lessons in my life, I am on the road to learning to live a forgiving life. And the more that I can apply and consistently practice those lessons in my life, that practice in my life of learning what true forgiveness means, of opening up to true forgiveness and allowing the undoing of the guilt in my mind, you know, I am experiencing more and more peace and times of peace. And although I'm still resistant, and this is a process, and you know, it takes a long time for the most part, because of our unconscious resistance and fear, nonetheless, we are withdrawing our allegiance to the ego through this process and strengthening our, you know, our intimacy with the part of our mind that is really the only part of us that we eventually will grow into, and really truly, you know, is reflective of what we are, which is the all-inclusive eternal love of our true nature. So it works. It's working for me. It's often difficult, but it has changed everything. And I even have moments now where I feel loved and loving, and that's a miracle. Thank you.